The military is deeply ingrained in this city's DNA. From the modern naval base of Devonport all the way back to perhaps this nation's greatest naval pioneer. One wonders what he'd make of the way our navy looks now. 4.5 centuries on from Sir Francis Drake's circumnavigation of the globe, and it's pretty clear that Britannia no longer rules the waves, nor the skies, nor the earth for that matter. But our armed forces remain one of the most important ways in which we as a nation project our power. That's why it's essential to regularly question what our military can and cannot do, and the way in which we treat those who fight our wars when they come home. Having been in power for the best part of a decade, and having presided over the modern era's most significant cuts to our armed forces, the Conservatives must answer for their record. Brian served 2 years in the army, but then found himself in a home for homeless veterans run by the charity Allegory.
Basically, I lost my son about 4 years ago. Obviously, I basically lost the plot, ended up in prison. While I was in prison, one of the officers there was in my regiment when I was in the army. And he told me about Allegory, so I applied for Allegory for when I come out. And Nikki, the key worker from this house, heard about my story, and she said that she'd take me, but only if I come to Plymouth. Because obviously, if I was in Bristol, it'd be harder for me to sort my life out.
So, was that because of the crimes that you were committing?
Yeah, because I'm an ex-heroin addict, ex-crack addict. I've been clean now for about 4 years, so yeah, it's good. I'm doing well. But basically, coming down here and having Nikki as my key worker, that's what saved me, definitely.
Sadly, his is not a unique story. Many veterans found the transition to life after service even more difficult than the challenges they faced when fighting this nation's battles.
That really messed my life up because I always wanted to be in the army. I come from an army background. My dad's ex-Gloucester's, my Uncle Barry's ex-Gloucester's, my granddad, all my family are all ex-Gloucester's. You know, something I always wanted to do. I was an army cadet all my life. I left school, went straight in the army, and it just messed everything up, really. Well, I was really depressed, really. I got into heroin then. That's when I got into the heroin. Basically trying to run away, I suppose. I don't know what was going on, really. It was weird. I come out, and all my friends were all at it, so I just jumped on the bandwagon, really. And from then on, I've just been in and out of prison all my life. It was only when I lost my son that I really sorted my life out, you know, with the help of Jan and Nikki and my key worker Ali at Harbour and my friends in the house. I've sorted my life out.
Brian now has a flat of his own and volunteers at Dartmoor Zoo, and the prospect of paid employment lies in the not-too-distant future. With Allegory's assistance, his is a life firmly back on track. Others may not have faced the same struggles as Brian, but the end of any military career brings its own challenges. David served almost 2 decades in the Navy, including a tour in Afghanistan, until he was medically retired. 2001, yes. That was when it was particularly dicey in Afghanistan, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Obviously, it was the first time I've ever seen operational service, but it was an eye-opener, as they say. But like I say, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and the people around us looked after us, and we all got on with the job.
As with so many others forced to end a military career much earlier than hoped, there is almost a sense of bereavement.
It was really hard leaving one military family and joining the civilian side of it. It's that transition, and obviously I didn't know, due to my physical injuries, what I'd be able to do outside, and luckily that's where Active Plus came along.
A community interest company, Active Plus uses the unique skill set possessed by so many veterans to help vulnerable or potentially vulnerable people. It's clearly filled a hole in David's life, yet despite being back on Civvy Street, he cannot help but worry about the future of the Navy. What's your view of where we are as a country, of how effective our armed forces are right now?
Well, our armed forces are one of the best in the world, and still are. However, due to cuts, it's a sad state of affairs that potentially we are losing more ships. Hopefully not, because it's got a knock-on effect not only with Plymouth, the dockyard workers as well, and veterans. It's upsetting.
The military covenant is the phrase used to reflect the idea that a duty of care is owed to those who put themselves in harm's way for this country. Yet so often it is companies like Active Plus or charities that take the strain. Politicians, he says, need to listen.
Defence Secretary, please reconsider all plans. Look after the armed forces. I know you are doing a good job, but continue looking after us and putting our armed forces at the primary first, top of the list.
And the armed forces will continue to look after the likes of me?
Yes.
The local MP has been one of the armed forces' most vocal supporters of late. Little wonder, given that he himself served 3 tours of duty in Afghanistan.
Just how significant, how important is the military to the local economy here in Plymouth?
The military's the heartbeat to what we do in Plymouth. It's traditionally been a huge military presence. That has obviously diminished, but the character of the city and, and our contribution, particularly into recent conflicts, has been as high as any other. It's part of the fabric of the city, and look, we're really, really proud of it. And that's why what is going on at the moment is a deep concern, and and I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can to make sure that that we're in a good place, particularly after the security review that's being done at the moment.
In Whitehall, the vultures are circling. Emboldened by a PM with precious little room for manoeuvre, the Defence Secretary now openly calls for more money, even if that in itself won't be enough.
A lot of it boils down to money, but as you well know, spending is about priorities, right? And I do think, there's been a significant problem since 2000, the early 2000s when we did Iraq, and we clearly committed to things we could not do. We did the same in Afghanistan. Some of us learnt the very painful lessons of that. And so people like me, I'm afraid, when you get into positions like I am now, are determined to sort of learn those lessons, not for ourselves, but to make sure that we're never in that position again.
I mean, you got into Parliament 3 years ago, and the military covenant has been something you've focused on, re-establishing that link, that promise that we make to our armed servicemen and women. We put them in harm's way and we will look after them. Have you been successful?
No, I don't think I have. I think I've failed thus far. I think that we have achieved some notable kind of successes for the military around the Iraq Historical Allegations team, around getting priorities right. But I mean, in the broad picture of things, if you look at the proposals that were being looked at, it's clear that, I have not reset that relationship that the country has with its military. I know it's a big ambition, but I think this country needs it. But fundamentally, I think the armed forces deserve it. And yes, a big part of that is spending, but a big part of it is what they're there for. And, the country and the political leaders of this country need to lead and shape that debate.
If the cuts continue in the way in which they have since the Conservatives came into power in the coalition, if there isn't that change in strategic direction that you're calling for, long term, will we be able to project power in the way we once were?
Well, no, we won't, and I don't think the British people will take that. The great thing about politics is that actually we're not in charge. If we don't get the basics right in this administration at the moment, of which I'm afraid defence is one of them, then we will pay a price at the ballot box. The British people are proud of their armed forces. They know that these freedoms that we enjoy very much were very, very hard won, and they're not prepared to see the capabilities that we need to defend them run down and run into the ground by governments of any colour.
But is there truly the political will to improve things, to roll back on almost a decade of downsizing? Absent such a desire, will people like Brian and David continue to put the needs of the country above their own?